I'm not sure you can see me. This is a bit of a tall lectern for your my height. So I'm Neil Carson from the juggernaut of Oracle. And I'd actually echo a lot of the stuff that Tim was talking about. I think that there have been some seismic technology changes in the past number of years, which have really enabled businesses. I think Steve was mentioning Airbnb and Uber, organizations like FirmStep, and organizations like Oracle to change the way that we engage with people. And I think that biggest change has been around cloud. I think cloud technology has enabled organizations to focus on their core values and what they deliver as an organization, rather than worrying about the limitations of IT. And cloud lets you do things like the Scarborough model. It lets you do things. We've been working with Argyll and Bute Council recently, and we transformed their organization from their lagging CRM platform into a cloud-based digital engagement platform in about 4.5 months. And we couldn't have done that with our legacy toolkit. I don't think Lagan could have done that. In fact, I know they couldn't, because I used to work for them, and it took us about 9 months to do stuff with Argyll and Bute originally. But cloud has enabled that transformation technology. It enables you to put the customer first and look at some of the journeys that the customer wants to go on. Now, I did have some screenshots, and I was going to go into Google and browse and show you some live customers, but Nick came along and zapped it because he wanted to look at his email first, and I had it all set up there, so I'm not going to do that. What I will do is I'll talk about a couple of them, and if you want, I'll be over in the corner there, and I'm the one with the low pop-up stand, otherwise I can't reach it when I come to take it down. So, it's 100 years today since the Battle of Jutland, and actually Memorial Day yesterday, and Royal British Legion is one of our customers, and they use us to provide self-service capabilities to people who want to inquire about the Royal British Legion. And it could be anything ranging from where's the Poppy Day service to what's the correct order of service for Remembrance Day, through to help groups, through to post-traumatic stress syndrome. There's a huge range of questions that they will get asked, and they're able to answer about 85% of those questions online now, because they've redesigned the way they engage. And again, it's mobile enabled, and it could be anybody from a veteran of the Second World War through to somebody who's recently come home from Afghanistan, or members of their family. So a huge range of things. We've done some really exciting work with Bernardo's in Stoke, and it's very rare that Stoke and exciting get mentioned in the same sentence, even with football. But we've put together a site with Bernardo's to engage with younger members of the community, people who are 18 and younger. And again, that experience, it's sort of a bit like a piece of graffiti, the website. And it's got communities, and it's got forums, and it's to help people who are maybe going through stress and trauma in their lives. I've got two 18-year-old girls who are doing A-levels at the minute, and the stress and trauma that I'm going through, I need an upside for me, let alone the stress that they're going through. You know, and kids are under, you know, that pain and that pressure. And one of the neat little features that we've got in it, because they will often come back and talk about bullying, or areas that they're maybe a little bit concerned about mentioning publicly, we've got a quick exit button on that website, so that you can hit that and it takes you straight to a Google search screen, so someone can't come in and look over your shoulder. We've done a lot of work with internal customers. You know, we tend to focus on external customers. We do a lot of work with people who are transforming their internal service desks or their HR policies, shared parental leave being one really good example. So, and again, I think it was Steve mentioned earlier about web chat being a really good channel. That's a fantastic channel for people who are wanting to ask you things about sensitive nature queries. And we've found that really, really successful. And I was going to show you East Renfrewshire Council's website, but I can't, thanks Nick. but I will be over by the short stand. So I'm going to move on to a lot of what we talk about is around changing the way we do business so we can reduce cost. So that we can increase quality, yes, but so that we can reduce cost. And that's a very laudable driver. And I hope this will work. And I guess one of the challenges that I would put back is, we've heard some quite grand claims, and I'm sure they're all correct. We've saved 1.5 million doing this. We've saved 400,000 doing this. We've saved 3 million doing whatever. And you actually challenge people and say, well, okay, so has your budget been reduced by that amount? And say, well, it's not quite like that. It's a theoretical cost saving because we've now moved so many transactions away from the phone and we've put them in under this channel, and say, well, okay, so have you shut some buildings down? Well, you don't quite understand. And said, well, I do if your finance director takes the budget away from you. Then you actually have to produce those savings. But if you don't, it's all theoretical. So, I've been doing some work with some local authorities and had a quite an interesting session with Roy and some colleagues a couple of weeks ago, trying to get to the bottom of how much the things actually cost and what can you influence. And we'll be doing one of these. Nick must be really happy with me. He's giving me a virtual high five. Thanks, Nick. So what are the things that we can look at? I'm a big cricket fan. I'm a big rugby fan. And Ulster didn't do terribly well at rugby this year, again. But one of the adages in sport is about control the controllables. A very famous Scotsman up in the corner there, that was again one of his adages: control the controllables. So look at the things that I can actually influence, and that's what we've been focusing on. So yeah, we've been talking with a lot of people around the front office side of things, and what we've tried to look at is where are the major cost elements in a transaction. So there's some of them are relating to staff costs, some of them are relating to ICT overheads, some of them are relating to facilities and buildings and transportation. And if you've got a fantastic solution like Total Mobile that can reduce some of those transportation costs, brilliant. If you're looking at something that is shifting transactions to the web, then let's look at some of the costs further up the food or further up the supply chain. And then we've been looking at to try and monetize those savings. So how do I actually measure the cost? How do I measure the cost of a particular transaction? How do I look at, is this web transaction actually cheaper than a telephone transaction? And if it's back in the days, and I've worked with CRM systems that is exactly like Tim was mentioning, and I think Steve was mentioning back at the Kirklees, where things were digitized, and it provided better customer service, but it didn't actually save any money because people were coming in. And Esther mentioned one council that she was at recently where they're still doing that, and they're just rekeying stuff that the forms come in. So that's not actually going to save you any money. So let's look at how long those time segments are being spent on each of the transactions that we're looking at. Let's look at some of the annualized IT savings, because cloud does give me a more flexible platform, but it also generally will give me the ability to flex up and flex down, and I can actually start to measure costs more accurately on a transactional basis if I go to a cloud platform. And if I'm doing something which actually isn't going to reduce my facilities costs, and these tend to be the really hard things that people get hung up about when they're looking at a cost per transaction, maybe I don't need to concern myself just so much about them, because that might be a wider transformation program. That might be something that I will do with the building rationalization. And what we came up with was a patented, for any other suppliers that want to steal this, a patented by me. So for a small fee of a pint, you can have it. Volume complexity matrix. And my hypothesis around this is if I can start looking at my transactions almost in a Gartner quadrant type thing, which Oracle's up at the top for customer experience platforms. If I start looking at things in terms of volume, if it's high volume, yeah, I probably want to look at it. If it's high complexity, yes, I probably want to look at it. But if it's low volume and low complexity, well, probably not much point spending my time customer journey mapping that set of transactions. So it helps to give me quite a visual representation of where I should be putting my effort in terms of Nick doesn't like it anymore. He's giving me the fingers now, just 2 of them. Oh, 2 minutes, sorry. And then we started to say, well, okay, so what are the things that I can influence? Well, this really depends on where I've got the authority to change. So if the majority of that transaction's in back office or fulfillment type services, and I don't actually have delegated authority to change those, perhaps I don't want to spend a lot of time focusing on them. Or what I might want to do is look at that and say, well, if I did it this way, might that mean less effort for people in my fulfillment team and my middle office and my back office? If I could do it so that it would go straight through and it would go straight into uniform and straight out to total mobile for someone in the field to go and do the job, wouldn't that be really good? So, you know, it helps to give us that visualization. And what we then have been looking at is trying to get that balance on an organization by organizational basis. So we will cover that in a little bit more detail this afternoon in one of the breakouts. But in order to justify me coming here, I have to get one slide which says we're really clever and we've got lots of customers. These are all in the CX digital platform space. Thank you.